You can master every artificial intelligence tool available. You can develop the sharpest prompting skills in your industry and build the most sophisticated automated workflows. Organizations routinely allocate millions in capital towards surface-level AI integration, only to watch those investments severely underperform. Every technical strategy eventually collides with a hidden human variable, the subconscious inner operating system of the operator. Beneath the conscious effort to adopt new technology lies an architecture of unexamined, fear-based emotional programming. These are identity-level stories about what a person deserves and what they are capable of. Left unchecked, these hidden scripts actively throttle the potential of world-class AI capabilities. Addressing this internal programming often feels uncomfortably like therapy. Because it lacks the rigid mechanics of a traditional business strategy, serious professionals frequently skip it in favor of purely technical advice. But ignoring this layer guarantees failure. The ceiling of any external organizational AI strategy is strictly enforced by the subconscious internal programming of the human operator. A 2024 corporate learning and development study reveals how this internal programming creates a measurable gap in career performance. The study tracked two cohorts of mid-level managers. The design was heavily controlled. Both groups shared identical role complexity, were given identical AI tool access, and received identical technical training. Researchers isolated a single variable between the two groups. They measured psychological readiness, a composite score of self-efficacy beliefs, growth mindset indicators, and comfort with uncertainty. This matrix tracks the 12-month performance data of these two identically equipped groups. Over that year, the outcomes drastically diverged. Cohort A, the group that scored high in psychological readiness, used their AI access to systematically expand the ambition of their work. They tackled complex problems outside their normal scope, achieving measurable career advancement. Cohort B used the exact same tools, merely to do their existing tasks faster. Without the internal readiness to expand their scope, their efficiency gains led only to organizational stagnation and early signs of disengagement. The identical toolkits produce two entirely different realities. Enterprise AI adoption ROI is primarily a function of the user's psychological readiness, not the quality of the technology. To understand why intelligent professionals artificially cap their own capabilities, we have to look at how human behavior actually operates. We are primarily subconscious pattern execution systems that only occasionally experience the sensation of conscious decision-making. Cognitive neuroscience estimates that up to 95% of human behavior is driven by processes operating entirely below the threshold of conscious awareness. The inner operating system has 4 layers. At the surface, results sit directly on top of behavioral habits. These are dictated by 2 foundational layers beneath them: trained emotional patterns resting upon a deep bedrock of core beliefs. These bedrock beliefs, convictions about our value and our place in the world, were largely installed during childhood and early adolescence, long before the prefrontal cortex was developed enough to critically evaluate them. We can understand this through an AI emotions parallel. A large language model's outputs are the inevitable consequence of its training corpus. In the exact same way, a human's behavioral defaults are the predictable outputs of their formative experiences. As machine learning pioneer Yann LeCun notes, both human and machine intelligence require upgraded data to produce better outputs. You are your own training data. Applying advanced AI tools to the surface results layer without first upgrading the core beliefs layer creates a system mismatch. The tool is inherently throttled by the operator holding it. Organizations consistently make a critical error when trying to fix this mismatch. They assume that subconscious limitations are just intellectual misunderstandings that can be trained away in a seminar. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio's research effectively dismantled the Enlightenment assumption that human cognition is a pure, emotion-free, rational process. Damasio's somatic marker hypothesis identifies beliefs as physiological signals encoded in the body, rather than just cognitive ideas stored in the intellect.
These somatic markers operate as a rapid assessment system. They fire preconsciously, assessing threats and delivering a physiological verdict before the rational brain even engages. Every professional outcome follows an identical chronological chain. A triggering event touches a subconscious belief, which generates an immediate physical emotion. That emotion then acts as a strict filter on all subsequent logical thought and action. When faced with AI disruption, the amygdala predictably triggers specific fear responses: the terror of irrelevance, anxiety of competence exposure, and dread of identity dissolution. Because these fears are physical somatic markers, intellectual understanding of a new AI strategy is useless unless the physiological fear response is deliberately interrupted. This internal somatic architecture visibly manifests in the exact way a professional interacts with machine intelligence on a daily basis. When observed in the field, users reliably fall into one of two default operating modes: the passive receiver or the sovereign thinker. This chart compares both modes. The passive receiver's agenda is dictated by others. They accept AI outputs as defaults, relying heavily on external validation. The sovereign thinker proactively defines what matters, treating AI as raw material, their identity internally anchored. The most accurate diagnostic tool for determining which mode someone is running is not a survey, it is their actual prompts. The questions a user types into an AI serve as a transparent mirror, revealing their subconscious beliefs about their own legitimacy and authority. These operating modes are programmed internal frameworks, and the passive receiver will mathematically never achieve more than baseline efficiency until that framework is actively broken. Rewiring this somatic architecture and internalizing the complex strategic frameworks required to do so demands aggressive cognitive reconstruction, not passive observation. This begins by recognizing the highlighting illusion. Skimming text or marking sentences creates a false, momentary feeling of recognition. It does not create genuine capability or lasting memory. The strict test of true understanding is the ability to close the source material, completely reconstruct the core argument from memory, and explain why it matters. To force the brain to rebuild logic step by step, the deep reading methodology relies on the one-paragraph rule and the close-the-book test, reading small sections and verbally explaining them aloud without looking at the text. When that explanation breaks down, you isolate the failure using an ignorance notebook. By writing down the exact points of confusion, you turn what you don't understand into a highly specific personal curriculum. Whether you are attempting to absorb a complex technical manual or rewrite a deeply held foundational belief, passive consumption fails. You must actively rebuild the data yourself to claim ownership of it. To replace an obsolete internal operating model, professionals must execute a formal protocol known as the three-phase inner OS upgrade. Phase 1 is awareness. This requires a belief archaeology dig, tracing a recurring failure back to its original somatic emotion. Phase 2 is interruption. This process requires catching the somatic signal in real time and pausing the automatic behavioral chain. The intense friction experienced during this interruption phase frequently causes people to quit. But this discomfort is not evidence of failure. It is biological proof that genuine neural change is in progress. Phase 3 is reprogramming. To generate fresh training data for the nervous system, the user must sustain new micro-behaviors consistently over a 90 to 180-day period. Machine intelligence can assist in this process. AI serves as a brilliant Socratic coach for structured reflection and psychoeducation, guiding the inquiry with extreme patience. But no algorithm can rewire your subconscious. AI cannot feel the somatic signal or hold the emotional charge. The emotional labor of answering difficult questions is the actual rewriting mechanism. AI is simply a neutral capability amplifier. Because the technology is equally available to everyone, the deliberate engineering of your own inner operating system remains the ultimate, irreplaceable competitive advantage.